I'd like to show some images of that time. I start with some nice sepia photos that I've downloaded from the web. They were made, I think, by an Australian, Captain F. Hurley, and appropriate because they were taken from the time of August 1917. Let's have a look at them. You've just been looking at the ruined tower stark against the skyline, skeletal, of the cloth market that had been built in the 13th century. Well, here it is today, rebuilt, sturdy, massive, impressive. Indeed, the rest of Ypres, which was also pretty well devastated, including the cathedral, have all been put together again. It's an impressive, lovely town, clean, and yet it still has the medieval feel about it. But one of the main sites is the Menin Gate here, which commemorates 54,328 Commonwealth soldiers who died after the 15th of August 1917, have no known grave. Of course, it was not here in 1418, but it's a poignant place because this was the start off for soldiers going to the front. New Zealanders commemorated closer to their killing fields, where they actually died. The Old Bill pub. Dot and I were impressed by this roof and all the stories of windows there. This is the old fish market. I'm going to have to read this bit, otherwise I'm going to be very hesitant and mess it up. I don't know why Grandad Reg joined up I mean, with a wife and 5 children, despite the passion and patriotism of the time, wouldn't have been a very good idea. But the army was using up people at a massive rate, so I guess he was conscripted. Anyway, he enlisted in Finsbury as a rifleman with the 7th Battalion Rifle Brigade, the so-called Prince Consort's Own. So by August 1917 he found himself in the Ypres salient. I'm going to block myself out now, show you a map of where our people went to work. Ypres, where our people were, is in the west, and their aim was to get initially to the Passchendaele Ridge. That's where the Germans, they were in and around that area in the northeast, as you see it. Tactically a very good place to be, because they could look down on the town of Ypres and more specifically our own people. Very good for targeting. Here's a couple of aerial shots of what it's like today. Extraordinary really, because the fields are green. When you see them, everything's nicely ploughed, smooth, hedgerows, trees, sunny. It's as if nothing dreadful ever happened here. Anyway, the first and second battles of Ypres were German initiatives, but the third was down to Field Marshal Haig. He wanted to break the stalemate, the deadlock, and get through to the coast, so disrupting German communications and destroying submarine pens. The battle had a number of phases. A preliminary attack started in June, but the main fighting took place between July and November of the year. In mid-July, 3,000 of our guns, our field guns, started in earnest with 4.25 million shells delivered over the next few days. The infantry followed up at 3:50 AM, going over the top, on July the 31st, to progress across an 18-kilometre front. Imagine that, 18 kilometres of our soldiers moving forward. But they did so with great difficulty, because the conditions were appalling. Rather ironic, because it's only just started raining here, but at the time, that August they had the worst, or rather July and August, they'd had the worst rain for over 30 years. During August there were only four dry days. You can imagine it was like a polder or marshland, reclaimed land, where the water table was already very high. The combination of that and the shelling turned the place into a total glutinous morass, so that soldiers carrying equipment of 45 kilograms, 100 pound or more, could sink in this stuff, sometimes even drowning. Well, the bombardment did not deter the Germans. They were able to answer it with their own shell fire. They had pillboxes and blockhouses that housed machine gun nests. They were protected by thick mesh of barbed wire. Added to this, on the 12th of August, the Germans started using Ypres, which was mustard gas, in preference to their old favourite chlorine. Now this was dreadful stuff, because if you got it on you, it would burn. So God knows what it did to lungs, dissolve them. If that was not enough to contend with, Reg, along with his comrades, had trench foot. I mean, this can form in 12 hours in damp conditions and constricted clothing. It's like having frostbite, but without the frost. You get sores, blisters, flesh goes red, black, even gangrenous. You can imagine what that could lead to. Well, the gains from that battle were not very great, and the losses were hefty. A lot of people were killed and wounded. It meant that a further offensive had to take place, and that happened on the 16th of August. This one was called the Battle of Langemarck, again within the overall battle of Third Battle of Ypres. In 4 days, fierce fighting achieved next to nothing. In fact, this battle was regarded as a failure. Here is another map. The grey area shows what was gained. In fact, in some places, no more than 250 yards had been achieved. I doubt Reg took part in these insofar as he was in the actual movement across land, because units were being constantly changed. Anyway, his turn certainly came, and that started on August the 26th. Again, there was torrential rain overnight, making any movement difficult. Even the sound of tanks coming up to the front were drowned out by this pounding rain. Meanwhile, our people set up a barrage, and there was constant enfilading of enemy lines with machine gun fire. By the morning of the 27th, pools of water, deep pools of water, were stretching for as much as 30 yards or more. And at 8 AM, our barrage stopped. Incredible, really, because 0 hour wasn't until 1:55. That's when our infantry, which was positioned mainly in scraped out holes in the terrain, that's when they were meant to attack, in broad daylight. The Germans must have known they were coming. Edwin Vaughan, who took part in the attack, his diary, it's worth listening to. Shells were pouring onto the Saint-Julien Triangle Road as we advanced, and through the clouds of smoke and fountains of water, I saw ahead the lines of figures struggling through the mud. It took us only 5 minutes, but in that time I saw with a sinking heart that the lines had wavered, broken, and almost disappeared. That was where my granddad was. Another commentator put it, worn down by the clinging mud and answering artillery barrage and scything German machine gun fire, the attack withered away. Vaughan went on. A more terrible sound now reached my ears. From the darkness on all sides came the groans and wails of wounded men. Faint, long, sobbing moans of agony and despairing shrieks. It was horribly obvious that dozens of men with serious wounds must have crawled for safety into shell holes, and now the water was rising about them, and powerless to move, they were slowly drowning, and we could do nothing to help them. Well, this map shows the advance on that day in green. If you take an aerial view of the terrain, what I've been talking about happened in a triangle of Ypres in the west, Zonnebeek to the east, and Langemarck to the north. More specifically, Reg must have sunk somewhere in the mud for all time, somewhere in this area here. Well, at least his name was carried to Teinkot, the cemetery between Zonnebeek and Passchendaele. The Third Battle of Ypres cost our people at least 250,000 deaths. The Germans suffered likewise. Passchendaele was captured by November, but Haig did not achieve his breakout.
Jeffrey Gladstones, age 24. Cecile Ernest Barfield, age 27. Edward Thomas Sandel, age unknown. Guy Collins Whelan Tate,